Written over 2,000 years ago, Titus Lucretius' Carus epic poem expresses completely modern notions. For example, empiricism, a theory of atoms, a theory of evolution, the notion of prehistory, and Epicureanism's morality and psychology. Helping to ignite the Renaissance, it is considered most important. On this video, you may learn details about a section of this epic poem. Lucretius on Nature, second book, Life Made of Matter. Lucretius begins this book in a most despicable manner. To my eyes, it shows the flaw, the paradox and ironic nature of Epicureanism. The poet seems utterly unaware of his viciousness. Herein lies a song about the joy that it is to gaze at the hardship of another. Of course, this is a very common psychological phenomenon. Yet, its commonness by no means should be understood as appropriateness or acceptance. To be clear about my inclinations, let it be known that this attitude amounts to the joy of envy. It would incline a human being to make sure that there are others beneath him or her. The dangers of seeking happiness, as it could be wrought, in the minds of some, by the pain of others. The topic quickly changes as Lucretius speaks of something more commendable. Let me quote him as he says,
"In how great perils, in what darks of life, are spent the human years, however brief. Oh, not to see that nature for herself barks after nothing, save that pain keep off."
Herein we see the most fundamental Epicurean asseveration, that happiness is but the absence of pain. All other possible endeavors of man are therefore superfluous and potentially harmful enterprises. This is, of course, to be much debated. For the time being, Lucretius focuses on the fact that luxury, greed, as well as vainglory are foolish. Consider.
"Treasure, nor rank, nor glory of a reign, avail us not for this our body, thus. Reckon them likewise nothing for the mind."
The imagery is made of marching troops and the alleged splendor of warfare. I should highlight the emphasis on body. It is said that if it does not benefit the body, then it does not benefit the mind. I guess that might be true of some not-so-hairy monkeys. Surely, seemingly, it is true of the majority of the so-called humans, but is it likewise of all? Speaking of the evils to happiness that religion produces, the poet provides an analogy of children fearing darkness. I reckon an aphorism could be crafted out of it. Then, as if it had all been but a preview to the Epicurean morality and psychological claims, the poem returns to discussing matter, atoms. The philosopher asserts that atoms cannot stop moving, not because of some self-made force, but rather because their smallness and weightlessness leaves them at the mercy of outside forces. That is, of each other. Yes, as they sit in void, they bump, collide, and move each other. It is a great turbulence and chaos, a perpetual swirl of matter. To prove the prior, reference is made to the common view of dusk under the correct light. Meaning, when sunlight strikes the air in the appropriate angle, human eyes may discover a myriad of previously invisible particles.
"For thou wilt mark here many speck, impelled by viewless blows, to change its little course, and beaten backwards to return again, hither and thither in all directions round."
This must be something commonly known. Surely all people have noticed this phenomenon, usual in the mornings or at sunset. The poet addresses the common counterpoint, the common question of why, if things are made of specks even smaller than those commonly seen in air, are there clumps of matter? Why are there objects rather than merely clouds of matter? To answer this, the writer invokes the idea that numbered things, when seen from far away, seem as a single whole. Let me quote one of the examples.
"A glint of white at rest on a green hill. Again, when mighty legions march round, yet detached locations exist, up the high mountains from which they seem to stand a gleam at rest along the plains." In like manner, he says, are atoms. These merely seem to form bodies such as our own, because we gaze upon them as if from a relative far distance. It must be noted how curious, how amazing, the whole of this asseveration is.
To think that this was said so long ago, and that it is said without much physical proof, or even knowledge of larger, although small, things such as bodily cells or chemicals. There's a quick, as if passing mention of how atoms may move quicker than light. Curious that Lucretius recognizes light as moving. However, for the time being, the poet focuses on explaining gravity. Yes, he says that nothing corporeal, atoms, may move upward. If this seems so, as is the case with fire, it is only a temporary effect due to some force. He provides the example of buoyant wood that leaps from the water into the air if it has been forcibly submerged underneath the water and then let go.
Yet we never doubt, meseems, that all the weight within them downward bears, through empty void. Well, in like manner, flames.
He says that even heat is attracted to the earth as it pours downward from the sun. Naught may avoid their own weight, as all is sitting in void. Curiously, herein arises another dispute I would have with Epicureanism. Lucretius says that despite this ever-present necessity of matter to behave, to move, according to some preset nature, that is not the case with humans. No, people have, according to the philosophy, free will. I must say that the issue, at least not yet, is nowhere thoroughly enough addressed. For the time being, the point is made that mind can move the whole of body at will, while other matter, besides the man, can try to move the body, but will meet, if the mind does not agree, resistance. Of course, these observations have, in reality, little to do with the question of free will. The subject changes into discussing the shapes of atoms. At first, Lucretius insists that these must be very varied in shape and form. To argue this, he makes reference to the variety of shapes that can already, at our scale of observation, be seen in nature. From all the different types of animals to how, within a particular type,
thou wilt discover still, each from the other still unlike in shape. Nor in no otherwise could offspring know mother, nor mother offspring.
Of course, animals such as cows might all seem similar to us, but to themselves they are as different as we are to each other. On the same asseveration, on the variety of atoms, the argument is made that this explains the differing consistencies, fluidity of various liquids. Some are more viscous because of the shape of the atoms from which it is composed. The same explains why light might go through surfaces where neither air nor liquid does.
It comes that the primordial cannot be so suddenly sundered one from other, and seep one through each several hole of anything.
Another proof Lucretius invokes is that of taste, of physical sensation. Yes, he holds that the different taste of different foods, of different liquids, is due to the different shape of atoms which compose them. He takes to this so wholeheartedly that even says,
touch is indeed the body's only sense.
This is to mean that smell, taste, and sight are merely the result of the body, feeling, the atoms or super small objects. The last proof is how filtering, refining, purifying, and sterilization may be done. Yes, the philosopher is perfectly aware of these processes both in nature and in humans' hands. I found it remarkable as much later there was such resistance to germ theory. Surely, many 18th century doctors never read or knew about atomism. Of course, also, those doctors, like most humans, were weak and simply couldn't admit that they hadn't helped any of their patients. Yet, all the prior is not to say that the forms of atoms are infinite in number. No, they cannot be an infinite variety, as that would, necessarily, by logical or mathematical law, also make them, potentially, infinitely large. Yet, of each kind or shape, there are an infinite number. To address the obvious issue with the prior asseveration, Lucretius indicates that some animals are extremely rare in some places, yet very common in others. In like manner, he argues, rare kind of atoms here on Earth are as common as all other atoms in the totality of the universe. A noteworthy analogy is made to a shipwreck, meaning that the spread of atoms across the void of cosmos are like the spread splinters of a shipwreck. Also, or lastly on the topic of atoms' variety, there is an analogy to war. Herein, essentially, I think, the idea of the cycle of life is invoked. meaning that matter as we know it is recycled in a process wherein it changes mixture so that ever seemingly new things are also the seeming destruction of an old things. A new topic makes reference to a deity titled Etna, like the Sicilian volcano. I cannot say that I completely understand the reference. Be it how it may be, it is clear that the whole tale is retold for the sake of insisting that the gods do not care for human affairs. Yes, consider these lines.
All the gods must of themselves enjoy immortal eons and supreme repose, withdrawn from our affairs, detached afar. Needing not us, they are not touched by wrath. They are not taken by service or by gift.
This is certainly another, most essential, element or conclusion of Epicureanism. It is a religious view that borders on atheism, a theism with unconcerned, insignificant divinity. I must admit, I do not understand how the topic of atom variety altogether led to this point. The topic then changes into something that borders on the theory of evolution, at least on biology and one of evolution's most essential premises. It is said that
keeping the parent's nature, parent's habits, which, kind by kind through ages they repeat. But still it must not be thought that in all ways all things can be conjoined, for then wouldst view portents begot about thee every side, hulks of mankind half-brute starting up. All are from fixed seed and fixed dam, engendered and so function as to keep throughout their growth their own ancestral type.
Yes, Lucretius recognizes that children must be like their parents. I do hold that if such a thing is recognized, then, perhaps paradoxically, a great step has been taken in understanding evolution. In later books, the philosopher will return to the topic. The poet now concerns himself on the so-called secondary qualities of atoms. First among these is color. He insists that atoms have no color, that the color of objects does not result from their matter. Rather, it is a result of how light reflects on the viewer's vision. Of the prior, he takes as a first proof that there is no color in the absence of light, meaning, therefore light must be essential for color. Second, that the colors of objects readily change. Herein Lucretius tries to provide some examples of when this commonly occurs. From these examples, more than anything else, I conclude that it is safe to say that while ancient thinkers did not perform artificial experiments, they did at least make plenty of observations. Of course, most present-day scientists would take great issue with this lack of effort or lack of systematic thoroughness. Keep in mind, those things require a world with certain institutions and levels of peace and order. Another example of mere observations is when he makes reference to a peacock's tail and its changing colors depending on the angles of observation. Let me quote.
Wherefore, since by some blow of light begot, without such blow these colors can't become.
As for logical proofs, of which the ancients attempted to ever provide as many as possible, the poet questions how atoms could be the carriers of color. Meaning, as it is assumed that objects are comprised of many different atoms, then they would not have any particular color. Ergo, he thinks color is carried by light. I should make clear that this is very similar to the modern understanding. Light is needed, but objects' matter determines which portions of light are absorbed and which are reflected. Lastly, he argues that some objects have no smell or sound. Therefore, why should it be considered that all objects have color? The subject now turns to how life arises, or is composed by, non-life. In particular, how can creatures, such as humans, have sensations when they are composed of inanimate, non-sensing parts? Of this, the poet first makes reference to how life may rise, become alive, from the mixture of different atoms. The evidence for this is none other than worms and such creatures appearing after and during rainstorms. Of course, presently it is said, after much debate and experimentation which was to a large extent paradoxical, that life may not easily arise out of non-life. Meaning, it does not occur in nature, although it is presumed that at some point in the far past it did occur, but only in very simple, primordial form. As for explaining how sensation is brought about, Lucretius simply invokes the importance of the appropriate mixture and movement of atoms. The various, almost infinite, possible mixtures are so critical that they may, even under the correct arrangement, give rise to subjective experience. He puts emphasis on the fact that the mixture must as if interact with another mixture that simple parts of life cannot feel when they are detached from the rest of the body. This is important as it is clear that most mixtures or atoms do not have sensation. Consider
that a man may laugh, though not, forsooth, compounded out of laughing elements. Why then cannot those things which we perceive to have their own sensation be composed as well, of intermixed seeds quite void of sense?
A new section starts. This one is titled Infinite Worlds. In a very poetic manner, describing the sky as the father and earth as the mother, the point is made that this earth of ours must not be unique and sole in the cosmos. He implores the reader to look up into the sky and gaze into the vastness.
Nor can we once suppose, in any way 'tis likely, that only this one earth and sky of ours hath been created, and that those celestial bodies, so many, perform no work outside appearance.
What is more, consider.
Seeing, moreover, this world too hath been, by nature fashioned, together at random, without design, in vain.
I quote this much and wish to quote more, as this is something most remarkable about not only Lucretius's reasoning, but also physical reality. Here is some more.
It must be confessed in other realms there are still other worlds, still other breeds of men, and other generations of the wild.
The same is said of the sun, the moon, the oceans, and even of man. Yes, as existence is infinitely large, it is utterly necessary that man, as it is, be repeated. Oh my, Zeus. Incredible. I should make clear that the whole may easily be taken as an attack on religion. Not merely modern, Christian religion, but also that of Lucretius's own time. Speaking of this, he almost anthropomorphizes nature herself as he says,
Who hath the power, I ask, who hath the power to rule the sum of the immeasurable, to hold with steady hand the giant reins of the unfathomed deep, to be at all times and all places near?
Truly, as my childhood self would say, there has to be a god for every galaxy. The poet makes specific reference to Zeus' thunderbolts. He makes the point that these do not, in fact, generally strike the guilty and impious. To end this book, the poem seems to describe the end of the world or life. I must admit I do not quite comprehend what he is attempting to convey. It seems he speaks of a slow decline, a cold death. Now, to pique your curiosity, to motivate you to watch the last video of the series, I gift you a teaser sample of the many aphorisms I crafted as I read this author.
Since it is the sufferers that most invent or believe in God, it must be that God dislikes its believers.
If you enjoy or gain from my aphorisms, know that I have thousands. I will be writing books with short thematic essays composed out of aphorisms. These essays are profound and intriguing yet easy to read. For very cheap copies, look up Protagoras Pause in the Amazon website. I repeat, Protagoras Pause, that's my name.